Hey y'all, I am back and I have some paranormal stories that I'm super excited to read. I'm nervous, but excited. I picked out 4 stories from the subreddit. I wanted to say really quickly, I actually remembered to say it at the beginning this time. If you have any paranormal, let's not meet, stalker stories, any weird situations that you want to share with me or the community, I always have my subreddit linked down below. Feel free to share any story you want. We're reading from the paranormal flare today. There's different flares on the Reddit, so you just pick like the category of your story and you flare it that way so that it's easier for me and the community to go through and find them. We're gonna hop right in. This first story I'm super excited to read. It says Haunted Hostel on Our School Trip. Hi Courtney, I used to watch your channel all the time, but just recently rediscovered it and I think it's time to send in my own story. I hope you enjoy. Little background info. All this happened in 2018 on a school trip to Ireland. Everyone involved was over 18. Personally, I don't believe in ghosts, and while I'm still skeptical about what happened, I have to admit this was seriously scary. I'm also going to try and keep it short, but a lot happened in these 5 days. Day 1. When we arrived at the hostel, it was already pretty late and we had been traveling all day. The hostel seemed to be in a pretty nasty part of town. The lobby was dimly lit and had a few tables and chairs, which were so sticky no one dared sit down even after we had to walk for almost an hour to get there. The rooms weren't any better, the air was stuffy, there were suspicious stains on the carpet and ceiling, and each floor shared one bathroom, which didn't even separate shower and toilet. It was just one slightly moldy room. Overall, just super gross. Me and 4 of my friends shared one big room with 3 bunk beds in it, meaning one bottom bunk stayed empty. This will come into play later. Since it was pretty late already, we just got something to eat and came back to the hostel right after. While getting ready for bed, we kept hearing running sounds coming from the hallway. It was very loud and went on for like half an hour, but anytime we opened the door, we didn't see anyone. At this point, I was already joking that clearly the place must be haunted, but my friends found it less funny. I told them it's probably just coming from the floor above. My bed was closest to the door and therefore the light switch. So once everyone else got into bed, I flipped the switch. The exact same second as the light turned off, the running in the hallway stopped. It didn't fade out, it just stopped. We heard nothing, not even light footsteps. I turned the light back on and saw all my friends staring at me as if I was the ghost. I laughed it off and told them, at least we can sleep in peace now. This didn't calm them down much, but we were tired enough to fall asleep pretty quickly anyways. A few hours into the night, I woke up and went to check the time on my phone, which was lying on the ground next to the door to charge. When it didn't turn on, I realized the cable wasn't even plugged into the wall, even though I was sure I had plugged it in. I told myself someone must have gotten up and tripped over it, plugged it back in and waited for it to turn on. It was around 4 a.m. and I went back to bed. Day 2. When I checked my phone again the next morning, I found it unplugged again. However, it was around 10%, which means it did charge, but it was unplugged soon after. I asked my friends if anyone did it, maybe by accident, but no one admitted to it. I decided not to tell them that it already happened twice because I thought they were already freaked out enough from the running noise last night. Most of the day was filled with mandatory class activities, and afterwards we went to a bar with some others from class. We asked them about the running, but they said they didn't hear anything. It was past midnight when we made our way back to the hostel. Aside from being stuffy, the hallway on our floor now also smelled like rotten wood or something. The others confirmed that too. It was a bit better inside our room, but still very noticeable. The window couldn't be opened all the way, so it wasn't much help either. We quickly got ready for bed and were happy to do so in silence. No running at all. I wrapped the cable around my phone this time so no one could trip over it. Day 3. I'm used to getting up very early, so when I woke up the next morning, the others were still sleeping. The room still smelled terrible and I desperately needed some air. I went downstairs without waking the others, got some coffee next door to the hostel, and then stood outside having a smoke. I was gone for less than 15 minutes when my phone rang. It was one of my roommates. I picked up, and before I could say hello, she shouted at me, "Where are you?" She sounded panicked. I explained myself, but before I finished, she interrupted me and told me to come back upstairs right away. I hurried inside and found my friends at the entrance to the hallway in their sleep clothes. The one that called me had tears in her eyes, but the rest didn't exactly seem calm either. This is what they say happened while I was gone. They woke up from a loud knocking on the door. Not the usual knock knock knock, but many knocks and more aggressive than normal. They asked who it was and got no answer, but since my bed was empty, they assumed it was me trying to scare them. As one of them went to open the door, it wouldn't budge. She couldn't turn the doorknob. She said it was as if someone was holding it shut from the other side. She yelled, "Very funny, you can stay out there then," and locked the door. A few minutes later, it knocked again, and while it was still knocking, she unlocked and opened the door very quickly before I could hold it closed again. But of course, there was no one out there. Just an empty hallway. They were scared they could be locked in again if they were to close the door now, so they ran outside to the end of the hallway, where they called me. When they first told me this story, they were all talking over each other, and I barely understood what had happened. I was also still very much a non-believer, and while I didn't think that they were lying to me, I had a hard time taking their story at face value. They must be exaggerating because they're scared. There must be a rational explanation. The door was just stuck. The knocking was the boys in the room next door playing a prank. Whatever. I didn't say any of this out loud, and I could tell they were getting frustrated with my skepticism. I went back to the room, the door opened just fine. And when I knocked at the doors of the others on our floor, no one admitted to knocking on our door. But of course they wouldn't. My friends were still scared to enter the room, but we had no choice but to get back in there, at least to change, before we could be gone for the rest of the day. Later, we tried to convince the teacher to let us switch rooms, but it wasn't possible. It would have cost extra, and even though we were willing to pay, they refused. They also thought we were crazy. When we came back to the room that night, everything was quiet. We knew that we had a rough night ahead, even if nothing were to happen. Everyone was scared out of their minds. I was unnerved too, but I thought it would make it worse if all of us were scared, so I pretended to be unbothered. We bought a battery-powered nightlight, so we didn't have to be in the dark, but also didn't have to keep the terrible fluorescent overhead lights on and talk for most of the night until we fell asleep, as to avoid the creepy silence and keep us distracted. Nothing else happened that night. Day 4. The next morning was fine too, but we still wanted to get out as soon as possible. We had more class activities that day and had to meet up in the lobby. Our teacher reminded us that we needed student IDs to get into one of the museums that day. My friend realized she forgot hers in the room. As we reluctantly went back upstairs, our teacher stopped us and, probably thinking we were up to something, said we don't all need to go up. One will be enough. It wasn't me who forgot their ID, but I knew the others were scared to go up by themselves, so I volunteered. Skeptic or not, the closer I got to the room, the more scared I got. Every horror movie I've ever seen was running through my head, no matter how hard I told myself that I don't believe in anything paranormal. Got to the room, unlocked the door, and what I found was, well, a bit too close to those movies for my liking. Every single thing we threw on the empty bunk bed in the last 4 days was now on the floor. The bunk bed was completely empty. Everything else in the room was still in its place. I stood in the door thinking about my next move. I grabbed something to prop the door open because my friend's story seemed very realistic all of a sudden and quickly searched the pile as if my life depended on it. Once I found it, I threw the rest back on the bed and left, practically running down to the lobby. Even though I tried to compose myself before I got to the others, they immediately noticed something was up. I told them what happened. I also decided to come clean about the thing with my phone and the charger that first night. We considered telling the teacher again, but we knew they wouldn't believe us. They wouldn't let us switch rooms. We had 2 more nights in that room. We stayed out as long as we could that night, but eventually we had no choice but to go back. Everything was as I left it. The girl who slept in the top bunk with the empty bed underneath now refused to sleep there again. I would have offered to switch, but I was too scared myself, so we slept in one bed together instead. The bed was barely big enough to comfortably sleep in alone, but we preferred this over the ghost bed. Okay, and lastly, day 5. The next morning we were all awoken by a running noise. It sounded just like it did the first night, maybe louder. It was barely 5 a.m., but we were all up and talking about it. There wasn't any way we would have gone back to sleep now. We checked the hallway, which was empty of course, and tried switching the light on and off, but it made no difference. Me and one other girl wanted to go downstairs for a smoke, but we've seen enough horror movies to know not to split up ever, so we made the others come with us. While getting ready, one of them noticed something else. All the stuff we had put up around the sink and on the tiny shelf above it had either been knocked over or thrown into the sink altogether. Like the rest of the hostel, the sink wasn't exactly clean. There's no way we would have just thrown our toothbrushes or makeup into it so carelessly. But how could we not hear it being knocked into the sink at night? We were too on edge to sleep through that kind of noise. We got dressed even faster now, and when we left the room, we could still hear the running. Walking down the hallway while hearing the noises felt like someone was running after us. I hate that. We decided to check the hallway above us, but there was a staff-only sign on the door and it was locked. The hallway below was also empty. We spent the next few hours half asleep at a Starbucks before we had to meet up with the class again. Once we got there, the guys that denied hearing any running on the first day came up to us and said they heard it this time too. My friends began telling them about everything we've experienced the last few days, but of course, they didn't believe it. They did offer to stay with us that night, but it quickly became clear that they had other intentions than catching ghosts, so we kicked them out. We tried to sleep, but after one of the girls swore she felt someone tugging at her bedsheet, we decided to stay up for the rest of the night. We'd have to get up early to leave for the airport anyway. We spent the night packing and forcing ourselves to talk about anything but ghosts. Since we couldn't find anyone mentioning anything spooky about the hostel online, we decided to write 2 notes that said something like, "If you experience anything unexplainable in this hostel, please message us," with an email address and an Instagram ad, one of which we hid behind the curtain in our room. The other we left in the hallway. They were probably thrown away by staff, but it was worth a shot. And that was the end of it. Whatever it was didn't follow us. We went home and never experienced anything like it again. We tried looking up the hostel to see if there were any stories about it or anyone mentioning ghostly activity in a review, but found nothing. We never got any emails or DMs about it either. Now that it's been a while since it happened, my skepticism has come back and I'm questioning it all. Maybe we just freaked ourselves out after a few creepy coincidences. Maybe there are rational explanations for it all. Maybe there was something in the water. But I can't fully convince myself. I'm still friends with all of them, and we all remember the exact same things. No one ever believes us when we tell the story, and I can't blame them. I believe you 100%. That is insane. That was much longer than I thought it was gonna be, so I don't know if we'll get through all 4 stories, but we're gonna try. I would shit my pants and leave immediately. Like, if they told me I couldn't switch rooms because you had to pay, I'd be like, well, I'm willing to pay. I would fight to the death to switch rooms at that point. Or like force the boys to switch rooms with you. They were trying to help anyway, so like I'd be like, you can just stay in our room, we'll stay in your room, we'll switch it up. That is insane though. It's like such a crazy story, and I'm sorry that you had to experience it, but I'm kind of glad because I liked hearing about it. This next story says, the spirit that hated children and was in love with my boyfriend's mom. Hi Courtney, please excuse how bad I am at this. This is my first time trying this out. This will also probably be stupid long because I talk a lot, and I get it. Since I was little, I've always had paranormal experiences, but this one really stuck with me. I'm 18 now, but this story takes place 2 years ago when I had just turned 16. Also, they're leaf blowing. They're gonna get closer, so when they get closer, I'm gonna stop, but if you hear like a little like buzz in the background, I'm sorry. I moved out of my mom's and in with my boyfriend and his family. My mom and I were having some issues and just really needed a break from each other. My boyfriend, who we'll call D, was also going through some family issues at the time. His parents were getting a divorce. His dad ended up moving out, which just left him and his mom, who we'll call T. This will play a part later in the story. I'll explain how the house was set up, and hopefully it'll help. As soon as you walked in the front door, to the right was the dining room, and they said the left a hall tree kind of area. I don't know what that means, but we're just gonna keep going. You walk straight, there was the living room, and to the left and right there were hallways. The left one leads to his mom's bedroom, the guest bedroom, and the laundry room. To the right was another guest bedroom, his bedroom, and his bathroom, which from his bedroom door you could see the living room, the staircase, and down the other hall leading to his mom's room. The kitchen is like behind the living room, separated by the couch and an island. I hope this helps. At this point, I've been living there for about 7 or 8 months. Keep in mind, all of us had just gone through these family issues and we're all just doing our absolute best to keep everyone as happy as could be. Anyways, with all of this going on, there was lots of negative energy from all of us, and I've always heard when your spirit is low and you're being negative, it's very easy for things to attach to you. Well, something attached to one of us. The first night anything happened, my boyfriend and I were laying in his room about to go to sleep, when all of a sudden him and I at the same time had this awful feeling. He looks at me and says there's something in the house or connected to one of us. I'm shitting myself because I thought I was just going crazy. Anyway, somehow we fall asleep that night, and the next night rolls around, him and I went out to the kitchen to grab a snack, and as we were doing this, I swore I saw something moving in the living room. I just brushed it off and told him to hurry. But get back to his bedroom, I tell him what I think just happened, and he says, I believe you, I had that awful feeling again. Needless to say, we did not go get snacks for a couple nights. One night I had a pee so bad I got up and opened his bedroom door where I literally got stuck. I could not move, I could not talk, I was stuck. Finally, after like 30 seconds, I slammed the door and ran my ass back to my bed of safety. Obviously, my boyfriend is like, what are you doing? I thought you had to use the bathroom, and the only thing I could get out was, it was right there. This still literally makes me shit myself, LMAO. The only way my boyfriend and I could describe this thing was that it was 10 feet tall and evil, the worst I've ever felt. For the longest time, I would not go to the bathroom by myself or have anything to do with that hallway. It was literally like you could just see him and feel him waiting in the living room. We finally said something to his mom, and it turns out she was also having experiences. She said the last couple nights she woke up to someone standing in her doorway, or it felt like someone crawling into bed with her. Fucking creepy, I know. This was not our first time with something in the house, so we did what we normally would and we saged the house. This was a major mistake. It only seemed to make this entity more angry. The house was dark and gloomy. We ended up calling a medicine woman who came into the house and was finally able to get rid of them. The scary part was what she ended up telling us about it. As I said, my boyfriend's parents recently divorced, and whatever this was, knew that. It attached to his mom, thinking that it was his wife. He would not let go of her and cross over. The reason she never really felt this evil feeling my boyfriend and I felt was because he hated kids. Us being in that house only made him more mad, and he thought he was going to be able to get rid of us and do her a favor. So yeah, that's the story of a spirit, ghost, demon, whatever you want to call it, being in love with my boyfriend's mom and hating us. I just wanted to share this other short story and not have to make a whole new post. We ended up moving into a home on our own, and we had a rabbit named Jackie. Anyways, Jackie had this big enclosure and this water bottle, I'm not sure how many gallons, but when it was full, it weighed like 5 or 6 pounds. One day, he was in his little house living his life when all of a sudden his water bottle goes flying off of his cage. We thought maybe he knocked it over and just put it back up, only for it to happen 5 minutes later. I don't know what to think about that, but he only weighed like 10 pounds, so maybe he did, maybe something else did. If it was something else, it was not evil. I think it was trying to play with him. Okay, sorry, bye. Wait, so the medicine woman, I'm not familiar with what a medicine woman is. Is that almost like a medium? Were they able to tell you the reason that the entity was there? Because like, how did you come to the conclusion that it was in love with the boyfriend's mom, thought it was like their wife, and hated you guys? I mean, clearly they hated Jill. No offense. Not saying that you're hateable. You know what I'm saying? Kind of. I don't really know. You had the evil feeling and whatever, and the mom like didn't, but she would have it like crawling in her bed at night, which is scary. But how did you come to that conclusion? I guess is what I'm asking. Did you like see a medium? Is the medicine woman a medium? I don't know. This next one says, The Man in the Stairwell, which I hate that. I hate the title of this. Hi Courtney, thanks for choosing my story. Apologies if this is a bit long. You can call me Danny, she, her, and I live in New Zealand. I've been watching your content for years and it's really kept me entertained through tough times, and I love your content because it's so relaxed. I feel like I know you as a friend. That is the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Anyways, first story. I lived from the age of 1 to 7 in a super old house. It was actually the oldest house on the hill I lived on, 1870s, which for a young country like New Zealand is incredibly old. My parents rented it from our landlords, an older couple who lived in a small unit below the house. When I was a toddler, I always talked to my mom about the man in the stairwell. I remember him. He was tall, with a long coat and hat, and he would always stand in the same spot in the corner hallway up the stairs. It creeped my mom out, to say the least. She's had her fair share of paranormal experiences, and I would point and talk about him all the time. He wasn't threatening or gave negative vibes, but he wasn't exactly friendly. I got a very neutral feeling from him, as if he was just watching us, nothing more. The creepy thing is that he wasn't an imaginary friend of mine. I already had one, an owl in the tree outside of our house. And this was confirmed to my mom as we were moving out. She asked our landlady who had raised her children in the house about it, describing what I always talked about. The landlady said her daughter saw and described the exact same spirit at my age. When my mom told me about this a few years later after we moved out, I got chills, because I knew then it wasn't my overactive childlike imagination. Anyways, kind of cool to think about. Kids definitely have a sense that adults don't. A couple other little stories. I went biking with a family friend to a graveyard when I was 13. My friend had just bought a new helmet, very shiny and expensive. I'm someone who is very superstitious about graveyards and always try to act with the utmost respect when visiting them, if not for superstition, but simply out of respect. However, my friend, being the dumb teenage boy he was, walked on top of the graves and was messing around and generally being disrespectful. Told him not to, but he ignored me. I instantly got a bad feeling in my stomach, but I tried to brush it off. When we got home, my friend noticed a massive crack in his helmet, as if someone had smashed it with a heavy object. He had taken care with his helmet, never dropped it, never crashed on our bike ride. I definitely think it was some kind of warning from the spirits for being disrespectful. Since then, I take extra care to never walk across graves, even though it was never something I did anyways. When my mom was pregnant with me, my parents lived in a little cottage. One afternoon, my mom was tired and trying to take a nap, and she was home alone. She felt hands grab at her ankles and pulled her halfway down the bed. Another time in the middle of the night, she woke up to a woman with dark hair staring her right in the face, literally a few inches away. My mom freaked out, and the lady disappeared into the darkness. Shut up. I have heaps of other stories from family and friends. Some are absolutely insane. Let me know if you would like more, and thanks to anyone who read this. You have to share. Wait, I need more details on those stories. Maybe that's the whole story in itself. That's all that happened, never happened again. But if you have more details on those too, bitch, we need to know everything. Okay, and I am gonna read this last story because it's fairly short. It says, I didn't believe before. To start off, before this, I hadn't ever experienced or believed in the paranormal or anything like that. I'd been open-minded, but always told myself it wasn't actually real. Even when my mom would tell me stories about seeing shadows in our apartment we used to live in, or saying at a trailer she heard us calling her name when me and my siblings were asleep, I was still skeptical. I moved houses back in 2021, and when we moved, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, besides the usual feeling I got when being outside at night that I was being watched. But I brushed it off to just being my imagination and not being used to the area. As well as having experiences with creepy people and being a 16-year-old girl, I brushed it off to just being paranoid. This happened a little over 2 weeks ago. I was taking my dog outside. It was around 8 p.m., so it was dark out, meaning it was hard to see certain things even when there were outdoor lights. But what I was sure of was that I was being watched. This feeling didn't subside as me and my dog walked a little further into the yard. When I turned my head to look to the right, where a tree was in our yard, I saw something behind it peeking out at me, like it was trying not to be seen. It was hard to see, so at first I thought it was just the shadows and lights making figures, until I moved slightly to make sure, and that's when I realized it was real. At first I didn't know what I saw, but I sure as hell knew I wasn't going to get another look. All I knew is it was tall, too tall to be human, and it gave me a really bad feeling. I remember audibly saying, "Fuck no," and bolting back inside with my dog, slamming the door behind me, and then telling my mother what happened as I was on the verge of tears. She went to a window and managed to see something in the trees, roughly in the same area it had been. She said it looked like a deer. I remember her saying something about how it seemed off, but then when my father, mother, and older brother went out to look for it, it was gone. Mind you, it had only been 5 minutes or so when they went to look for it. Whatever it was gave me the worst feeling in the world. I don't usually cry when scared, but this time I did. I know it can probably be written off as a deer in my yard, but the feeling I get when thinking about it says otherwise. My dad said maybe it was a deer on its hind legs looking for something in a tree, but I don't think so. The way it was looking at me felt more like I was prey. Even now when I go outside at night, I can't shake the feeling I'm being watched. I will say I was fucking around with my candle magic a little before this happened. My mom had recently gifted them to me in crystals and I wanted to see if they would work. I was trying to do a protection / manifestation thing, but I think it only opened me up to unsafe things. Safe to say I won't be doing that again without doing more research. The thought of something literally like peeking out from behind a tree makes my skin crawl, especially like a shadow person, like just a shadow person like peeking behind anything. No. That is all I have for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. Again, if you have any stories like this that you want to share with me in the community, I'll have my subreddit link down below. My voice is like slowly leaving. I kind of just read for a while. This might be a longer video. I'm not really sure. I kind of owe you a longer video. I feel like I've had a lot of short videos lately. Maybe like the last 2 videos have been short, but whatever. So my voice is kind of gone. But on that note, I am gonna go. I don't know if I have much to ramble about, but we'll see what happens. I love you guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye. Actually, I do have something to tell you. So this is crazy. I didn't know this existed until recently because my friend does it. My cats are like, they're getting better. Like Nar and Weems are super social. They love people. I mean, Nar more so than Weems. Weems just like doesn't really give a fuck. Rumble is very shy. He doesn't warm up to people that quickly. Like if someone's over for a couple of hours, he'll like eventually come out and like come around. But he doesn't really like want you to touch him or really like look at him, like look in his fucking direction. So Rumble's just a very like, he's a scaredy cat, honestly. And Rumble has to get his vaccines. He's due for them. And so I made him like an appointment at our vet. But I was like thinking about it and I'm like, the last time I took him to the vet or tried to take him to the vet, him and Nar had appointments like back to back, like one day then the next day. I don't take them together because it's hard for me to carry both of them. And it's also just like really stressful. So I had like one appointment like Tuesday and one appointment Wednesday, for example. And so I did Rumble first because he's worse. And I was trying to get him into the carrier and I literally was like wrestling. Oh my God, I was trying to wrestle him into the carrier. I've told this story before because I was like traumatized by this experience because I felt so bad for him and I couldn't get him into the carrier. So I called the vet and I was like, I'm bringing Nar instead. Like I could not bring Rumble. And they ended up not being due for anything. It was just an exam. And so they were like, you don't even need to bring Rumble in if this is traumatizing for him. He can just come in for vaccines. He doesn't need like an annual physical exam. He'll be fine. So I made his appointment to get his vaccines for Wednesday. And I was like, I just don't know if I can do it. Like, I really don't know if I can. And I want all of them to keep up with their vaccines because I want them to live forever and ever and ever. Weems is getting into my lap and I don't trust this man. He was literally like cuddling with me earlier and then started attacking me out of nowhere. And I was like, bitch, like get a grip. But anyways, I'm gonna take him off my lap because I'm kind of scared of him. I'm not gonna lie, he's very fat. He's kind of heavy. Anyways, so I remember that I talked to my friend Dylan about like a mobile vet, like a vet that comes to your home. And so I Googled it, I found one, I called them, I was like asking all these questions, like how does it work? Do you come inside? Do I have to bring them out to you? They literally come into like your apartment or your home and do everything there. Like vaccines, the exam, they can take blood, like they do everything there. And so I was like, wait, this is like amazing. It's more expensive, obviously, like at my vet, like an exam is like $79 plus the vaccines, whatever you need. The initial exam just for the mobile vet is almost $200, but I'm like, do I pay $100 more or do I traumatize my cat? Like, honestly, I just feel like, and I don't even know if I could get him to the vet, like honestly. And like, so I'm gonna splurge on it. I would do anything for my cats, so I'm gonna do that. Sorry, I'm like talking about this for so long. My camera's gonna stop recording. Like, I'm gonna hurry this up. So I'm a mobile vet coming here to do his stuff, but I also don't really know what to do. I think I'm gonna put him in one of his, like a kennel anyways, because he'll be like hiding from the vet because he doesn't know who they are. And so I think I'm gonna put him in a crate anyways. So when they get here, he's like ready to go and they can just do it, whatever. He's gonna hate his life, but it'll be way less traumatizing than dragging him to the vet, like driving 30 minutes there and back and whatever. I'm gonna go though because I've been talking for a long time, but I'm really excited for that. I think it'll be really good for him. I think it'll be like I said, way less traumatizing. It's so much easier for me too because I don't gotta drive. Don't gotta do anything. I just gotta be here. But yeah, okay, I love you guys. I don't have anything else to say. And I've been talking for a long time. This is gonna be a long video, I feel. I love you so much. See ya.